topic. We're moving over to the DPS channel for that one, and within the next two shows, we're going to be most likely officially over there. So if you're not already subscribed to that channel, make sure you subscribe to it. We got a lot of changes that we're making to some things in the show that's gonna, hopefully make a lot of people happy and stuff like that. But we really appreciate everybody, sticking out with us as long as they have, and you guys are very much appreciated. I'm about to end the show over here, and it should redirect you automatically, but SloMo just put the link to the DPS stream in the chat already. So if it doesn't redirect you, just hit that button over there. You'll be over there too. But once again, we'll see you guys over there. Thanks again for hanging out with us.
All right. I think, yep, it has worked. People are here. Welcome.
welcome.
Okay, levels are good. All right, so final topic. Kind of an interesting topic. I'm kind of shocked that it actually even became a thing, but this topic is going to be about situational disabilities, and yeah. It's a little weird because this all came out from Elden Ring, and a video that, well, it's a subtopic of a topic, which is Elden Ring too hard? And a lot of peers who's been a influencer, content creator, in games media now, a developer, she's worn every hat there is to wear in the game industry, I guess. On her YouTube channel, she made a video talking about, is Elden Ring too hard? And so she kind of, I mean, look, no offense to her, I thought her video was kind of all over the place. Like, it was, I can tell she didn't have a script. She may have had I don't know, some notes about some things to talk about, but she kind of seemed to lose the plot sometimes, and we all do that sometimes when we're talking and we're just kind of going off the cuff. But at one point, she started talking about just the accessibility of From Software's games, and From Software being the developer of Elden Ring. And she discussed something that got a lot of people a little upset, which was she said that having children, young children that is, as a gamer, is a situational disability. Your child could need your assistance with something, or you could be concerned with your child doing something that could be potentially dangerous, as children tend to do, and this will distract you from when you're playing a game that does not have a pause button or doesn't allow you to stop. Now, to be fair to her, she wasn't advocating that that From Software needed to put a pause button in there. That's something that she has said over the past week multiple times on Twitter. That said, many people were not happy with the description of what she described parents with young children. And then not quite she, but another developer, he's a character artist for a lot of different games. I can't remember his name at the moment, forgive me, but he came out and showed a chart from a study or whatever that Microsoft has used in the past in regards to creating apps. And considering that that's very similar to what we get from video games, that's where we have the whole situational disability stuff, because that was on the map. And also what was on there, what I found somewhat odd, was driving. Should you be using an app? With some apps, okay, navigational wise, sure, but should you be using an app or playing a game while you're driving? Maybe not. But that's kind of sparked a discussion. A lot of people really being angry at Alana, and a lot of people defending her as well. But what we're going to try to do is, not try, we're going to have a civil conversation, because this got very intelligent, emotionally mature people here. So this clearly won't be like a Twitter discussion, but Forte, what were your thoughts about that in particular? And then I guess my first question to you is that, like, were you offended by the whole term situational disability in regards to the parents? Were you offended by that?
I wasn't offended by it. I just felt like it was just the wrong choice of, like, it was the wrong analogy to make in this situation due to, you know, me being a parent. And I guess my thoughts on gaming and being a parent are two different things. It's like, if it's like I play Destiny, and Destiny doesn't have a pause button. So for the last 10 years, if something was to pop up that I had to take care of for like anything in my household, I just put the controller down and I just walk away and just go and do it. And I don't look at it as this whole, this situation of disability, even though, and I understand the premise of what she was saying. I just feel like the moment you start using, you know, kids or anything like that as try to anchor for a discussion that you're doing, especially when you yourself are in a situation to understand exactly what that looks like as a parent, because they don't have kids. I just feel like I'm not going to say it's disrespectful, because I do understand where she's coming from.
Yeah, I think that like also, just real quick, the fact that she does not have children, I think also plays into people kind of going a little bit harder on her compared to if she was someone with children. I think people still would disagree with using the term, but
yeah,
the fact that she doesn't have kids kind of makes people feel like, what, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, what do you know? Yeah, like you've never had to deal with that situation, because I feel like a lot of people that I've spoken to in regards to this feels very similar to how I feel, which I haven't really said yet. I'll wait till you guys are done. But it's very been similar to, like, I've never looked at myself in my gaming, you know, environment as a disability. You know, it's just,
yeah, exactly. Because in my mind, it's like, first of all, it's a game, so it's a thing that we're doing to alleviate stress for the most part, sometimes away from your kids. So that's kind of how I kind of look at it. But then when you kind of throw it under the anchor of saying that, well, if your kid does this and you have to react and do this, it's kind of like making it seem like the game is more important than it needs to be. And it's like, and I know she's not saying that, but that's kind of what it's coming off as. So as a person that's like, as a dad, I'm looking at it like, so what are you trying to say? Just because, so it's characterized as a disability because I can't put the controller down and not mess up where I am in the game to take care of something that's going on with my kid. At that point, the game is like nothing, and my kid or anything else that relates to that is everything. You know, I drop everything for that. So, you know, I just felt like it was just a bad analogy to use. You know, she could have used any, because I was talking, because you weren't here. I was talking to Gamelogiq, to Hemp, about it earlier today. And we talked about, like, so if same situation, does that mean my job is a disability? Because if I'm at work and something happens and I have to leave, does my job have the right to tell me I can't leave if something's going on with my kid? I'm sorry, one thing takes precedent over the other. So it's like, it could get real messy when you're talking. That's why I say it feels real messy when you're talking about individuals that depend on you. That's a dependent. Is the, like, when you look at gaming is a function of something that makes you happy, where a kid is a responsibility of something that you're taking on that you have no choice to take on because you decided to go down that road. Once you made that decision to go down that road, it's your responsibility as a parent to treat that, to do everything you can need to do for that kid, no matter what. So there's not a disability about it at that point, unless you have a legit disability. And the one thing and you know how she came out with a video after the fact and named it Let Me Explain. That's how I knew she was kind of trying to rally the troops a little bit and try to figure out a better way of saying it, because I've never seen a lot really come out and try to add another video as context on top of what she was trying to do before, because she kind of knew that it came off the wrong way and maybe she should use it as a different analogy for it, but it was already said and done at that point and people was already like, yo, I can't rock with this. Now I like I was telling people, I still like Alana. Alana's cool. I don't have any issues with her or anything. I just feel like, you know, to a point where she just kind of let her she just kind of let the experience of what she was talking about just kind of get the best of her at that point, and it was just not the best analogy to use in that situation.
Okay. Logic, what's your thoughts on
it? So I guess I want to start by saying, a lot of my thoughts are framed by working in software development, where we have to deal with a thing called Section 508 compliance. And that is the US government directive on making software accessible. And I've probably dealt with Section 508 compliance for 20 years or so. Mm-hmm. Me personally, and so there are, when you're designing software applications for government use, and they themselves have to be compliant with, making accommodations for people who maybe don't see as well. And so sometimes your software has to, be capable of attaching to, voice over APIs and plugins, or, the resolution has to scale. So you have to be concerned about, people who have sight impairments, wanting to scale your browser up all the way. And do you do something silly like make a modal pop-up window that when it's scaled in just looks completely ridiculous or makes part of the application unreadable, things like that. So that's part of where that comes from. As a gamer, me personally, I think that the topic of accessibility used in that specific vein has been important and huge for the industry. And that just really started maybe just before this generation, right? That that there was really a concerted effort to do things like making the accessibility controller for the Xbox, and now PlayStation has one as well. Mm-hmm. And there's really been a design effort to take into consideration ways in which games are implemented that make them difficult for people who don't have the common typical average set of human physical abilities that puts those games out of reach of people. And I think the industry has made great strides in that effort. I personally prefer that the term accessibility, particularly when talking about design and implementation, be isolated to that specific use. And again, that comes from working in a technical field where terms and labels matter, and what you call a thing. One of my biggest pet peeves as a program manager, technical director, whatever, is the old a bunch of technical people using one term to mean three different things. And then you talk about ways to get a technical team confused and cause customer confusion. So I use the term that way when people. I do have a pet peeve when people use the term accessibility in terms of gaming to mean things like quality of life or making a game accessible because it's in a subscription service, right? Or because it needs to be cheaper so that the game is accessible. I do use the term access, but I try not to use accessible and accessibility. So that's just my own personal hang up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. From my perspective, her error was using the term situational disability. Again, terms matter. I think using the term situational inability is what it means. Because in general, a disability is typically connoted as something that is permanent, whereas an inability, is typically something that is temporary. And then again, that's a connotation, English words in common use. whatever. Would I get offended by it? No, it doesn't piss me off. From a person who, I'm just going to be frank, from a person whose livelihood and career has been shaped by always being in the public eye and being a public speaking figure on matters of games in the gaming industry, and quite honestly, in terms of the way Alana kind of carries herself and puts herself out front, I would have expected a degree of self-awareness that would have informed her of where this was going to go and how this was going to be received.
Right.
Having been a person who's been on stage presenting awards to people for their work in accessibility, again, I would expect her to kind of know about things like that. So that's just my personal thing on it. I mean, the topic, do souls need a pause button? Is souls too hard? I think is a fair game topic to have. Forte and I were talking before. I mean, look, there are games that don't have pause buttons. Destiny 2 doesn't have a pause button, and it is something that has literally changed how I game, right? When I had kids. So it's a thing that does have to be contended with. But again, for several reasons, I think, this wasn't the best foot forward from that perspective.
Yeah, I think let you go, SloMo. I think the biggest thing for me, like, ultimately comes back to, and shout out to Ramon. He was saying, go check out Porter Rock. Porter Rock did do a really good video breaking that down. So anybody that kind of wants to see like Alana's point of view on it, that's why I said I definitely understand what she was saying. I just felt like the analogy she used just was not going to fit what people weren't going to take that analogy just at face value of what she was going to say. Like me, like I said, me being a parent, I don't, maybe because it's the way I look at gaming and the way I look at stuff like that, I don't feel like my kid is a disability to me at any point for anything. But I can understand, the subject matter she's talking about. In my opinion, I just wish she would have used a different subject, a different part of the subject matter to use instead of just that one part in general herself, because what she was saying is spot on. I mean, it's definitely a thing that is happening inside of the industry and stuff like that. So she wasn't wrong there. It was just the delivery from the get-go wasn't going to sit well with a lot of people due to the way she constructed her conversations around it in the beginning.
Yeah, I feel you guys, what you guys are saying. I'll say my piece on this, and I'll start with a story. It's not going to be a long story. So
stories. I love stories. Go, SloMo. Let's go.
So when I first got into IT, it was a career change for myself. And I first got into IT back in 2013. And when I got hired as a junior network administrator, one of the things that my IT director impressed upon me is that he knew I came from a very customer-based background, and he really wanted someone that could be able to communicate things in a way that the audience, the people that I'm working with, can understand. And that too many of the team at that time were people who were very good at their jobs, but also couldn't explain anything in any shape or form that made sense to the people that they were trying to say it to. Sure, among us on the team, we could talk about very technical things that we were doing in regards to the work that needed to get done. But when we had to go, say, talk to one of our colleagues, talk to someone when you're troubleshooting an issue with their computer, saying those same technical terms that they never heard of, and nor do they need to know about, is counterintuitive. And so it doesn't make sense for the person that you're saying it to, because they've never heard that term before, and it's not their fault they haven't heard that term before, but it's your fault for expecting them to know that term. And the reason why I bring up that story is that I feel like a lot of what's happening right now in this conversation are people who don't like the term that was used, people who, upon finding out that it is a term, are still somewhat upset because they don't think it should be used in that context. And that could be a different conversation. But the people defending Alana are doing what my coworkers would do when they would get upset and frustrated when someone didn't understand what they were saying. But it's because why should they know that? Why would any of us know, not being in the industry, what Logic knew? Why would any of us know that it's listed in some report or whatever that having a young child is a situational disability? Why would any of us know this? And what I find funny is how people put so much stock into, well, so-and-so said this, therefore it must be true. You know how many times things are said or used at a certain period of time, and then later on, ooh, no, we don't say that anymore. We don't do that anymore. It happens a lot. Happens a whole lot. So, I mean, at one point, it's just to kind of go back to what Logic was saying, because I agree with Logic a lot in regards to understanding what you should and should not say in a particular situation. Why would you say an industry term that you're not talking to industry people? You're not at GDC having a conversation with other developers about accessibility. You're on your YouTube channel talking to primarily your simps. Know your audience. That's one of the biggest tenets of public speaking. Know your freaking audience. And if you don't know your audience, you're going to get in these situations where you're going to say things that, I didn't, it wasn't meant to be offensive, but people got offended. There's an industry term that we all know now, and it's called whale. Now, any of us know what a whale is in gaming, right? We all know what a whale is. It's a person who has impulse control issues and buys everything in the game. And it's funny that, like, the term came out, was used in gaming for a while before it became common knowledge to other gamers. Now, why is that? I would assume, since I think it was EA that coined the term in regards to Mass Effect 2 or 3, probably 3, multiplayer, where they had one player who had spent like $10,000 in it. When you have certain terms that you use internally, like, that's probably, you don't want people to know that we're calling them a freaking whale. So you don't say anything about it. Why is it that that's understood in that sense, that should be done internally, said internally, but then it's different for this? I do think that to a degree, there are people who are simply upset because they look at people with disabilities as lesser. And that kind of annoys me. They will never admit it, but I do think that is the case, that some people think that the implication that they have a disability simply because they have a child puts them in line with people that they don't think very highly of. And to no fault of their own, someone who has a disability with their hands, someone who may have lost a hand or lost a limb in the military, serving their country, like, these people aren't lesser people. There aren't lesser gamers. Some of them could body you or do far better than you able-bodied people in a number of different games. But I do think a large portion, not a large, that's not, a significant portion of some of the pushback is people just being offended by that alone, and they won't admit it, but that's the truth. That said, I think the conversation just went left because a lot of people, like Del Walker, that is the name of the guy that posted the chart, and it's a legit thing, as Logic said. I'm not saying that, but if you look, I think part of the reason why the forever for this whole thing has gotten to the point where it is because it is this nose stuck up in the air. I'm a developer. I know what I'm talking about. You people are dumb. You should have known. Why the freak would anyone who doesn't do what you do know this? And why, if you already know that they don't do this for a living, would you say that term in a conversation that you're having with them, in a video you are having with people who are not developers? And then they have the audacity, yes, Del Walker, the audacity to be all like, because these people aren't educated. Hello? What the heck does any of this have to do with education? What are you talking about?
Spitting right now.
It's funny to me when people pretend to be intelligent but show their own ignorance instead. So while he and Alana are going back and forth on Twitter talking about all these dumb people who aren't educated because they don't know an industry term that only the people who work these kind of jobs have, and they are not educated in that manner. But I mean, we could talk about some of the other things that they have said on their own social media platforms that weren't very educated as well. And we could say, hey, that was inaccurate. Are you an idiot? Are you stupid? You must be dumb. You must not have graduated high school off of just not knowing one simple thing. Just like how it bothers me that's the state of discourse on social media so often. Yeah. You can never have a legit conversation with people because everyone is always so defensive. And then as soon as they see one of their buddies get somewhat attacked for things, and yes, she was attacked by people and some of it was not justified, but the reaction to call everyone who doesn't like the term and how the term is being used, you know, certain names and insinuate certain things about their intelligence just annoys me because it just really says more about you than about them.
Oh wait, did her simp defense force come out?
Yeah.
Bro,
big time.
They was out.
They put on the whole armor, man. They had their maxed out level gear on. All the top ultimate spells ready to go, man. They were they were ready. They were ready, man. It's just like, yo, what are we doing here?
Well,
yo, why?
So
go ahead.
So my biggest thing, like I said, and like I said, it came back to after, you know, even for myself coming back and actually listening and doing, because like my initial thought on it was, what the heck is she talking about? Like, why are we bringing, you know, kids in? I still feel that same way about, you know, bringing kids and stuff to the situation. But after I like looked at it and researched it a little more, I was like, okay, I get where she's coming from. I just don't like the delivery mechanism that she did to do it. But then it's like, she felt like she doubled down, like when she says, you know, in a tweet where she says, every few days, I wonder why I try to teach anyone anything on the internet. But yes, in software and game development, situational disability is a term that refers to any non-permanent situation that would prevent someone from progressing. Accessibility aims to alleviate that. I'm like, so after the fact, you want to give people this giant definition about the thing that none of them knew anything about.
You should have said that in your video. You should have said that in your video. Yeah, I mean,
she didn't offer that explanation in the video.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, like, look, I don't run around tossing the term cyclomatic complexity at people every day because they don't understand something about software. I'm even careful about tossing that term around at work because not every one of my developers or people who are even senior to me know that term. So it's just, and again, I also, again, working in software engineering, I also disagree with her with the thought that that's a universal term. I think that's very hyper specific to the game development domain, because in systems engineering, software development, I think we would talk, again, like I said, we would talk about an inability, we would talk about system availability, we would talk about usability in particular, and we would talk about, use cases, right? Because the kid walking into the room is a specific use case, right, where the software may go unavailable or the usability of the software may go to zero. Similar to, I think, the person who put up the chart, in device design, right? So for instance, you have your smartphone and your smartphone is in the car. That is a specific use case where you have an inability to do certain things and certain functions on the smartphone. So I don't think it's a universal software engineering, software development term. I think it's something very specific. And yeah, I mean, I've been an Alana Pierce fan at various points, but I am also kind of over her, and I will just say certain people who run in her circles, on particular networks, who have this holier than thou, who take that stance of, well, it's, when I'm wrong, then that's the case of it's my opinion and I'm entitled to it, free speech. But when I'm right, I'm right because, I know and you don't, and therefore I'm better than you.
Well, this is the thing, and I want you to take it from there, SloMo, because then it's like you just go looking at the tweet thread, and one thing I really like, this one guy, Daniel Mullen says, it's an argument over connotation of words. I'm sure it's used often with professionals that work in the space, but I doubt the average person is going to pick up on it anytime soon. And she says, right, and they shouldn't. I only use it in its professional context to explain the different branches of accessibility. But I'm saying, so
you didn't use it in professional context. You used it in a YouTube video.
In a YouTube video. So,
and that's why we're talking about this.
And that's what I'm saying. So and I think that's the thing that's throwing everybody off. Is like, okay, we get what you're saying now that you explained it, but you're mad, you're trying to like over explain it to us, and your people are attacking us because we feel a certain way because you didn't explain it correctly in the beginning, and that's why you feel like you have to go back and backtrack on stuff. That's why I said it was weird when she went and made a new video that said, let me explain. Because she knows she didn't give the
because she didn't explain it. Yeah, exactly. She didn't explain it right the first time, which instead of calling people, too immature to listen or dumb or whatever, the fact that you went and did a second video to explain kind of shows your own culpability in that. It's like, look, I'm a network engineer. Everyone knows what a firewall is at this point. That's common knowledge of what a firewall is. But if I tell you I'm working on the access control list, do you know that's a firewall? It's just only people who work with Cisco iOS would know that's a firewall. And so it's just like, it's the same thing, but I know when I'm talking to my colleagues and I say, I gotta go make some modifications to this extended list in this access control list, they know what I'm talking about. But if I'm talking to you, Forte, about it, I'm just saying I'm making changes to a firewall.
Yeah.
Because there's no purpose in me trying to sound like I'm so cool and technical, extra technical, by saying all the technical terms that you don't understand about it. I'll just tell you what it is plainly, because I want you to understand what I'm talking about. What are you doing right now, SloMo? I'm working, making changes to a firewall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're not
understanding the differences is key here. Who is the audience that you're talking to? It's just like, unless you just want to flex on people, and maybe that's why she used the term, because she was just in the zone at the time and wanted to flex on people, her knowledge of certain things, which could be a whole different conversation about, ego and how people act sometimes around here. But like, it's pretty freaking obvious to me They're like, you kind of created this whole kerfuffle, and you made it worse with your reaction to people's reactions, which, some of them, those reactions weren't very good either, but that doesn't take away her culpability in the whole process as well. Elijah, you were about to say something. I cut you off.
Well, I was going to say, like, you and I aren't going to come up in here and have a conversation about ping, jitter, and latency and then just not explain those terms to people.
Right.
Like, in their impact in the context of what we're talking about and why, like, yeah. I mean, but again, going back to the Simp Defense Force, right? The problem with this in the gaming community is that unfortunately she will never get canceled because that Simp Defense Force is out there for her.
Yeah. I just saw the chat and the whole Johnny Gill thing. So like, just y'all are wilding. Y'all are wilding.
Pump up the jam.
It's funny how how topics tend to just evolve in certain ways, because the entire discussion was about, is Elden Ring too hard? And we actually had that discussion last week where we discussed this, and me and Forte were both on the side of like, no, it's not too hard. It's there are ways to, and even now more so. There've been some patches. I don't think they have not nerfed the final boss. The only people who, the whole is it too hard has all been sparked from, I can say his name now because it's been 2 weeks since it came out, but Consort Radon, which was a boss in the base game that they nerfed at one point because people felt it was too hard. And at this point I had a conversation with our dear friend Luca where I felt like maybe they nerfed Radon because killing him is a prerequisite to playing the DLC, and they're working on the DLC, and if people can't beat him, then they can't play the DLC, which was people still had to beat him. He's much easier now than he was when the game first launched. So I felt like really like people thought they nerfed him because he was just hard and people didn't want to get good. But I think it was just because they just wanted, easier access to get people to spend more money. And at this point, I don't think they're doing any other DLCs for Elden Ring. If anything else, they're probably working on a sequel. And so I don't think they're going to nerf Radon. He is what he is, and you either adapt or you die a lot, or you end up fighting him 800 times until maybe he glitches out and you get lucky or something. I don't know, like that's up to you. But I think there is as Lodger said, there is a discussion. I think when it comes to what just in general, the way From Software does certain things to make certain things accessible. I know that you hate the way that's being used, but the way they do co-op, I think I know in their mind they think they're doing it in context of the world that they've created. I still think it makes no sense to do it that way, and it's just a frustration when you could just hit the menu and just invite a friend in. Just come on. Just invite a friend in. It doesn't have to be all this.
Did you play on PC or PlayStation 5?
I platinumed it on PlayStation 5 and I beat the DLC on PlayStation 5. I do own it on PC, but when Elden Ring first came out, here's another issue I have with From Software. Optimization. They get such a pass for having unoptimized, buggy products that barely ever get patched or fixed to a degree that people find acceptable, and yet people let them go because they're From Software, and they get by with that far too often. I'm sick of it. It's annoying to me. The reason why I bought it and did all that on PlayStation was two reasons. One, people that I wanted to eventually co-op with once I beat the game we're going to be playing it on PlayStation. So I said, all right, I'll get it there. But I probably would have double dipped immediately if the PC version wasn't such a buggy mess at launch. And so I just got it on PlayStation because it was not even the PlayStation 5 version, the PlayStation 4 version, because it was the only one the platforms that I had that had a stable frame rate of 60 frames per second. That's another issue that we got going on PC. They drop these games and they lock the frame rate to 60 frames per second. Sorry, it's 2024. Can you get with the times and unlock your frame rate? And I think Miyazaki, the lead director, has acknowledged they need more engineers to kind of handle some of these things. But knowing it and saying it is a different thing than actually doing it. When you know that's what you need and you making money like crazy at this point, every Elden Ring thing that comes out does better than before. Elden Ring itself sold over 20 million copies, which was far eclipsed all of their other games combined. The freaking DLC within a week sold 5 million copies. You got enough money to hire enough engineers to make sure your games aren't buggy messes at launch. To make sure your games, we can't, animations are tied to the frame rate. You know how many games are not doing that right now? No excuse. It's just no excuse. So do better. And these are things that everyone will just, not everyone, I see some people complain about it, but it just gets ignored far too often. And it needs to be addressed. Those are the things that I think parts of the conversation that need to happen, and not Alana Pierce's lack of understanding when to say industry terms or when not to say it.
What kills me on PlayStation is that y'all are doing all that in the DLC for no trophies.
Yeah, I think. Well, apparently that's also a thing with them all the time. They don't do trophies for the their DLCs, which not all of them. I think Bloodborne had, someone in the chat may correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe Bloodborne's DLCs had trophy support, but that may have been something pushed by Sony to make that happen, considering it's exclusive to PlayStation 4. But yeah, I've been told that's a common thing. So, I mean, the only way to really prove that, hey, look, I beat this, I got that, is to pull up the remembrance or a weapon that you got off of killing a boss or whatever. So it's no trophy support either, or achievement support either, which for those who care for that, you should be upset about that. You fought the hardest boss in the game. Consort Radon is now considered he is the hardest boss in the entire game. You don't get a trophy for that or an achievement for beating him. Come on.
Yeah.
Can we do better finally from Saul?
I'm more impressed. I don't have time for that even with trophies. So.
That's funny. Shout out to John Wolf. What's up, John Wolf? Says that bunny suit though. I knew he was going to say something about that. Yeah.
That bunny suit.
This isn't even the bunny suit that everyone's talking about. This one, I did pay for that skin, but I paid the equivalent of $2 for that. The one that everyone's talking about is $100, and I refuse. I simply, even once I get Ultimate Bunny, which this, it's okay, so in Warframe you'll have Rhino, and then Rhino Prime, Excalibur, and then Excalibur Prime. They're different Warframes, but the Prime one is the one that has higher stats, and there's a higher degree of once you min-max that build, a higher degree of being able to achieve certain levels of damage or whatever with that particular Warframe. First Ascendant does the same thing, but instead they call them, you'll have Bunny, who's the regular one, and then you'll have Ultimate Bunny. And there's an ultimate for not all of them, but for a certain number of them. I'm pretty sure all of them will get an ultimate version of those descendants at some point, and you gotta do a lot of grinding to get that particular Ultimate Bunny, or you can spend some money. So yeah, anyway, Gregor says, stole my flow bar for bar. Yeah, that definitely is Warframe right now. Anything else we want to say about this before we wrap it up?
No, man, you got it. You killed it.
Logic, anything else you want to say?
No, man. No, I'm good.
Great show as usual. Thank you, Logic, for coming through. We're going to get into these outros right after we do the thanking the channel members. Forte, are you ready or should I go first?
I got mine up right here. Channel members. And once again, appreciate everybody that supports us in this manner. Doesn't have to happen, but we still appreciate it anyways. Shout out to Mash, Brat, Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, Texas, Corey Hale, your boy Roy, Donnell Brown, Ramon Terrell, Hargy Chani, and the homie SloMoBackSlap. Appreciate all you guys, and you guys have a great weekend.
All right, on my side of things, we got the legendary Yobi, J387, K Asante, Neil S, Texas, your boy Roy, Corey Hale, Dondale Brown, Enrique, Hargy Shani, Ramon Terrell, Gaming Forte, and that guy Smitty. Appreciate you guys supporting us. As we said earlier, we are within just, I say, a couple of weeks of just having the full game on this channel, on the DPS channel. So you channel members, if you are a channel member before we go live, we will have a running background? Is that how to say it, Forte? What do you, how have you did?
If you guys look at the background now, how it is, how SloMo has it with all the embers and stuff in the background, just imagine your name just floating like in the background, so it'll just be like kind of translucent in the background. It's not going to be on this setup because it's going to be a completely new setup for the stream when we do it there. But if I had to think about how it is now, just look at how the embers are flying in the background on this one, and your names will be kind of doing the same thing. But it will be just something that will always be remembrance of the people that supported the channels before we moved everything over.
Cool.
So if you want to be a part of that, you still have time to, subscribe and get your name in there if you want.
Logic, did you want to do your outro, man?
He wants to be found. Tell him where you can find you, Esther.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to be found.
I don't have the outro template, but thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it. Always good to come here and talk about games without we'll just talk about games. You can y'all can catch me on the Enough to Keep Going weekly video games podcast Sunday nights at 8:45 p.m. I think I was out Sunday, so I think the guys did a show, but maybe they had to record it. Maybe they'll post it later. But we'll be back live as usual this Sunday night at 8:45 p.m. ish.
Do you normally host it, and that's why I wasn't live?
Yes. Yeah. I usually set it up through StreamYard because Discord has been bunky for months. Because they're both Midwest and I'm East Coast. So it's just always a problem. But yeah, and then, when you sign into StreamYard, it sends the verification key to like your personal email. I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be, around to send you guys that code. So they try to record it. But yeah, you can do that on Sunday nights or catch up with me on Twitter at Gamelogiq.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And guys, look, check out their podcast. Please do so. And I will get that link to the channel and put it in the description after we get the show done. But again, Logic, thanks for coming through, bro.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
Forte, your outro?
Forte everywhere. You were on my channel earlier today, so make sure you go back and make sure you subscribed while you're over there, hopefully. Going to be coming out with a video in the very near future, probably the next 2 or 3 days, probably by Monday or Tuesday. Talking about the direction on the channel and stuff. Because since we're making this transition where the podcast will be predominantly, well, not predominantly, will only be on the DPS channel, opens up the fact that I could get back to just, prioritizing the channel to, bring content to that and not be kind of stretch focused when it comes to things that I'm doing. So check that out. But with that, enjoy your weekend. Hopefully everybody had a great 4th of July, because who doesn't like eating food?
I did not.
Oh, well, I'll talk to you about this later. But
oh, no. I want to say this on stream. I think a lot of people, I'll say it when I get to my outro. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. But you guys just hope you had a good weekend. And we will see you guys for 188 next week on SloMo's channel.
And for myself, I did not have a great 4th of July. I hope you guys did. I mean, it was fine. I spent time with family. That part was fine. And the food was good. What was not cool was, I don't know what happened this year with my county and their fireworks, but they was out of pocket with the fireworks in my county. They were, look, maybe I'm getting old, but I just found them way too loud. Yeah, y'all definitely gonna call me an old.
Yeah, you old person. You the old fard for this one. Go ahead.
No. You'll understand what I'm saying. As I was driving home, and so this part of the reason why, of course, that we postponed the show was, it falling on 4th of July. More time to spend time with family and not feel pressure to try to have to leave to go do, a video game podcast. We can just do it today. I got home maybe around 10 p.m. and fireworks are still going. No problem. Super loud, but for some reason it seemed to be even louder over my neighborhood. Didn't know why. Found out why later on. So in anticipation of my trash day is also on Thursdays. And I normally would have had the trash out on the curb already, but I knew because it was a holiday, trash pickup wasn't going to happen until today. And so I am putting all of our trash cans, dragging them all out to the curb, and I start seeing things falling from the sky in front of me. And they're smoking. And I'm like, the heck is this? And so I look closer, and I feel like, is that part of a firework? And so I'm like, all right, let me get these things to the curb fast before something land on me. I get everything, all 3 cans to the curb, I go back in the house. Fireworks go off all the way until midnight. Kids couldn't go to sleep, they pissed. I'm playing games in the basement, I'm fine. I get up next morning. I go outside. Forte and Logic, my entire front lawn, driveway, and my car that was in the driveway covered in chips of flakes of whatever off of those fireworks and ash. I was not happy. Looked up that ash. They said you better go wash your car as quickly as possible because it could eat into your paint. Great.
Oh man.
Lovely. Let's celebrate all in the celebration of a specific demographics independence. Because it wasn't mine. It just wasn't my people's independence. But hey, thanks. So yeah.
We're gonna have to start putting up fireworks shows on Juneteenth.
Yeah, I want them right over all the I almost said something I shouldn't have said. I ain't gonna say it. But yeah, let's do all those fireworks over a particular certain neighborhoods. See how they like it. Let me get up out of here. More content for the First Descendant coming up. I'm gonna have a video this weekend about the fastest way to level up your Descendants when you first get them, and some other stuff. Maybe I'll do a live stream of me doing more of the story content too. And there are some things and some interesting tidbits coming out about Dragon Age the Veilguard, which is another game that I'm covering on the channel, but I don't think I've got enough stuff to put together into a video quite yet. So just look out for that in the future. And of course, as we get closer to the launch of that game, I'll have more content coming. But appreciate you guys coming through, and we're out, man. Peace.
Peace.
Okay, I'm done.